Signs, signs, signs. Yes, there will be signs. I tell you, there will be signs.
Hey Sean, we should probably step over to the side a little bit. Those thousands Kenny's always talking about are probably going to be coming through here any time now.
The alligator kind, status 4 living genera. Adult lengths 3.3 to 39 feet. Oh, that's a lot. Representative shown, the caiman. Alligatorid buried in the same rock layers as dinosaurs were often smaller than most modern representatives, except, of course, for the ones that weren't. And some of the giant crocodiles of the Mesozoic ate dinosaurs, but that's paleontology that our creationists don't like to play around with because we're laboring under the delusion that crocodiles didn't eat meat at this time. To continue, giant fossil caimans recovered from the Miocene rock layers of South America. Pterosaurus and Morosaurus achieved a maximum estimated length of 39 feet. How they managed to get from Mount Ararat all the way to South America, we're not going to go into, or why they ended up all going extinct. We're not going to think about that either. But it's going to get even worse, children. Crocodilians, alligators, crocodiles, diplocontidods, gharials, planocranids, and pristocampsids may form one created kind, but Ark Encounter researchers, who we aren't going to name, separated them to avoid underestimating the number of Ark animals or trying to justify cramming an enormously diverse crocodile group and crocodiliiformes and almost crocodiles into one kind because our brains can only handle so much.
Okay, RJ, what exactly am I supposed to say now? Any sarcasm I could come up with would be at best redundant.
The hyena kind, status 3 living genera, adult lengths 1.8 to 5.6 feet. Representative shown, Ichthyotherium. Originally classified as dogs, hyenas form a kind of their own. We didn't do any of that classification, of course. That's not work we do. The largest known member, Pachycrocuta, stood 3.3 feet high at the shoulder. We didn't do that work either. Wild populations today are only found in Africa and Western Asia, but fossil remains have been found in places like England, Java, and Mexico. How that pre-flood distribution occurred in a biogeographical context is completely clueless from us because we don't think about that. The CYNOGNATHID kind, status presumed extinct. That's because, of course, they're extinct. Adult length up to 4.8 feet. Representative shown, CYNOGNATHIS. Cynognathids and similar groups are considered to be non-mammalian synapsids because they were more like mammals than lizards or crocodiles. Here we're showing you a member of the reptile-mammal transition yet again. Cynognathids had opossum-like bodies and may have even sported whiskers. The scientists actually do that because they can tell from indentations on the skull if there were whiskers. The family is named after its only known member, Cynognathus, meaning dog jaw. But more important is the teeth and dental structure and the dual jaw construction, which is part of the transitional forms that are occurring during the reptile-mammal transition that our creationists ignore completely and are never going to show you anything at all about here at the museum.
We made stuff up.
The pachycetid kind, status presumed extinct, which is another way of saying they're extinct. Adult lengths 3.3 to 6.6 feet. Representative shown, Pachycetus. Recent studies, again not done by any of us, suggest a semi-aquatic lifestyle for pachycetids, but they may have been fully terrestrial. They had unusually dense limb bones, possibly to provide ballast in shallow water. Pachycetid fossils have been recovered, again not by any creationists, from pre-Ice Age rock layers of India and Pakistan. What they actually were they were living in the Tethya Sea that was shrinking as India moved towards the Asian continent and eventually pushed up mountain ranges. Those animals were found there, and they're part of the whale transition series, but we're not going to tell you anything about that. Also, because we've just put a whale ancestor onto our ark, does this leave open the possibility that all the sea whales all emerged from pachycetids afterwards? Oh, that's a head scratcher, and we don't want to think much about that. But there's going to be so much more paleontology that we won't be doing. So one of these days, we may have to modify this exhibit or take this one out so you don't notice it. Do these look like whales? Pachycetids were a small family of mammals whose remains have been found in Eocene rock layers, which of course is a geological name that we don't accept because we think everything happened only 4,500 years ago, of India and Pakistan. Pachycetids are currently presented as popular models of evolution as transitional forms to ultimately help bridge the gap between extinct land animals and modern whales. On the other hand, biblical creation does not automatically exclude mode of life changes occurring within animal kinds. For instance, we have the example of kakapos, flightless parrots from New Zealand, having apparently descended from flying ancestors, even though they still have wings and all their internal anatomy shows that they're in fact parrots, which can be done by the systematics, which we creationists don't actually do. So, the basic idea that members of a whale kind shifted from land-dwelling lifestyles to water-dwelling lifestyles may seem somewhat plausible, until we figure out that it has to happen so ridiculously fast that it can't possibly be accounted for by any known biology. So let's rethink this. On the other hand, one of the greatest weaknesses of the pachycetids to whales idea is a lack of evidence, or at least the evidence that we choose to ignore because we don't like it. The changes necessary for converting pachycetids into modern whales are extreme and particular. A flood of change contrived from only a few drops of evidence that we are not going to discuss with you because you might have to think about it and decide that maybe they aren't a few drops of evidence. Even a cursory glance, which is what we're doing, reveals that pachycetids and other supposed whale ancestors were quite unlike modern whales, even though that's what a transitional form would be things that aren't necessarily like modern whales, but are different from them in very specific ways. Like the fact that all the whales show that the blowhole moves backwards towards its present position in the fossils, and the exact anatomy is involved, and their flippers change, and the amount of genes that are used to determine that their flippers are starting to change from the conventional legs into more of the forms that we see later, and they've worked out the genes for all of it. No, this is too much information. We don't want that here. We only want to do a cursory glance to make it all just a few drops of evidence. Let's go on to the next display.
Any chance we could head straight for the junk shop? I really want to get one of those little wooden arcs.
The Thylacos cosmolid kind. Status presumed extinct, which may have guessed it's extinct. Adult lengths 2.6 to 6 feet. Representative shown, Thylacocosmolus. Resembling saber-toothed cats, the South American Thylacocosmolids are instead classified as metatherians, a group that includes marsupials. Thylacocosmolus reached the size of a jaguar, though the other members of this kind were smaller. It is believed that female Thylacocosmolids carried their young in a rear-facing pouch. This is because they are marsupials, and marsupials do that. None of this material was ever developed by creationists. And of course, we can't figure out why they're known only in South America and not otherwhere else, or why they've gone extinct when they must have been on the Ark. See, you can see them, little tiny babies that don't even have their tusks yet. Oh my, isn't it odd how many creatures on the Ark, 54% of what's on the Ark that you see here, all will go extinct? The Ark didn't do a very good job of preserving things, did it?
Don't forget, God sent you to all
the CYNOGNATHIS kind, status presumed extinct, which is to say extinct. Adult lengths 2.5 feet. Representative shown, CYNOGNATHIS. These crocodile-like reptiles likely use their leaf-shaped buck teeth to munch on plants. CYNOGNATHIS means pug-nosed crocodile and refers to the flattened faces characteristics of this genus. Some researchers, again, not creationists because we don't do this, believe that they were fossorial, that is, they burrowed. We don't really want to think about how incredibly diverse the crocodiles and those related to them are, so we're going to pigeonhole this little minor group off in a corner and hope you don't start reading up on the crocodiliiformes to find out how much we're leaving out.
What are you talking about?
The Macraucheniid kind. Status presumed extinct, which is to say extinct. Adult lengths 6 to 9.8 feet. Representative shown, Theosodon. The South American Macraucheniids are only known kind featuring both a long neck and facial trunk. Like other Macraucheniids, our Ark representatives, modeled after Theosodon, bore 3 toes on each foot. Macraucheniids had a size range similar to camelids, but are thought to have gone extinct during the Ice Age, the one Ice Age we allow. We don't allow any more Ice Ages, no matter how much evidence there is. And in fact, somebody in our group screwed up because they picked Theosodon, which is actually not technically in that family, but is a close relative and one of the ancestral forms. So we've actually spilled over the boundaries without even realizing it. But what's in a name? It looked good on the map.
Big joke, you mean that rat-tat-tat-boy outfit?
The SILESAUR kind. Status presumed extinct, which is to say extinct. Adult lengths 2.3 to 9.8 feet. Representative shown, Silesaurus. Silesaurs were not true dinosaurs, but were part of a group that included them, Dinosauriformes. But if the group Dinosauriformes included the dinosaurs, then doesn't that mean that they're the same kind as all the other dinosaurs? Oh, you don't expect us to be consistent in our systematics or explain why there were all of these almost dinosaurs right before the dinosaurs. They were facultative bipeds, though, meaning they could move on 2 legs if necessary. Almost like us, who can also walk on 2 legs and have brains even bigger than Dinosauriformes, even if we don't use them. The largest known member of this kind, Asilosaurus, grew up to 3 feet high at the hips. This is all we're going to tell you about those, because we don't want you to study those Dinosauriformes. After all, we didn't talk about the Crocodiliiformes either, or the Mammaliaformes. Why, it's like there's all sorts of almost forms in the groups leading up to other groups. You won't find anything on this in our bookstore. We're really careful on that.
And this picture, taken from another angle, clearly shows the Ark bleeding money. Okay, that's about it. See you next time.